Hello Game Boys and Game Girls, I'm the Game Boy Guru, and welcome to another pickups video. I got a chance to do just a little bit of game hunting yesterday, so I thought I'd show off the handful of things I picked up, and of course this is all at Goodwill, pawn shops, and one game store where I like to go and check out their stuff. So I'll start with the game store. Usually when I go, for those of you who have seen my collection videos and stuff I've posted on Twitter before, I almost always pick up a 5-pack of NES sleeves, and so I grabbed another one today. I do hope to sleeve every NES game that I have, and so when I go, I always pick up at least one 5-pack so that I can continually do that. Every once in a great while, they also have Super NES dust covers. And I know a lot of people threw these away. Most people don't care about them, but yeah, it's fun. I like to have these on the games, especially as pricey as Super NES games have become in recent years. You know, keep them from having to clean them too often. And finally, from the game store, I picked up Platoon for the NES. This copy is a bit more yellowed on the top than I would like, but it's a good price. It's Sunsoft. I've never actually played this. My friends and I played a lot of NES games when we were kids, but this was not one of them. So I really don't know whether it's any good, but for the price, I figured even if it's not great, it's at least, you know, one more cart for the collection. One of the Goodwill locations I frequent had a couple of things. They had a Cake Mania, I think it is, or something like that, that I didn't pick up because that's not a game I see myself playing. And they had a couple of other games that were incomplete, and then just a bunch of sports titles like they usually have. So I almost didn't pick up anything there, but then when I went up to the counter to look in the glass case and see if they had anything in there, I noticed they had a row of Super NES games. So I had the lady take something that was on top of them off so I can actually look at the labels, and all of them were sports games except for two. And that would be Star Trek: The Next Generation and Star Trek: Deep Space Nine, Crossroads of Time. So that was kind of cool to stumble across a couple of Star Trek games, a couple of Super NES titles in reasonably good shape. The label on the DS9 game is not in super fantastic shape, but it's not bad. And that's one I'll probably enjoy playing because I quite liked both TNG and DS9 as a Star Trek fan. The pawn shop that I usually go to had a few things that I picked up. I got an Xbox 360 game I'd never heard of called Quantum Theory, and it looks like it's multiplayer, either 2 players local or up to 8, between 2 and 8 online. I really don't like this trend of of games where they put just these scant descriptions on the back. A dark, monstrous tower looms over a wasted world. A lone warrior, Sid, vows to destroy it once and for all. That's it. That's all you get. And then you get three little blurbs. Shape-shifting battlefields. Okay, so procedurally generated, maybe. 2 character combo actions. Okay, team battle and deathmatch modes online. Okay, so they're really pushing the online component of this game. Hopefully the story is good. This is why I like picking up games at the pawn shop, because I can pick them up for a fraction, and I mean a fraction, of retail. so that instead of going and spending 50 or 60 bucks for a brand new game that may or may not be any good, I can spend a couple of bucks, and then if it's no good, I'm not out much. The reason I did pick this up, though, is because the art style looks cool, very sort of medieval. I don't want to say medieval, but just sort of, I don't know, fantasy role-playing type art style. But the game is by Tecmo, and so they're at least a developer that has done some great things in the past, so we'll see if Quantum Theory is any good. The other game I picked up is one that I already have the digital copy of this for the Wii U from a Humble Bundle that was done, but I plan on picking up the Wii U physical version at some point, but I decided, you know, again, for a couple of bucks, it's worth having it, and that is Darksiders 2 for Xbox 360. This copy says not packaged for individual sale, so I'm not sure if this was part of a bundle at one point, but it does come with a download code for some additional content. I'm assuming that's been used, but who knows. So anyway, we'll check that out. Kind of looking forward to that. I've heard it's dark, but it's also humorous, and I enjoy that. Got 3 new pieces for my PSP collection as I'm marching ever so slowly toward a full US set. So I got Madden 11, tick that box. I got another racing game called Juiced Eliminator. The PSP apparently has an abundance of really good racing games. I don't know anything about this one. Graphically, at least according to the screenshots on the back, it looks pretty decent. So, and it'll do ad hoc Wi-Fi with the game and up to 6 players. So that's kind of cool that you can race up to, you know, a certain number of people. And then I also got, most excitingly, R-Type Command. Now, I'm a big fan of the R-Type series, and even though I know this is not a shmup, scrolling shooter like the rest of the games in the series, I do like the R9 and the other ships, so I'm hoping that this is at least a fun game, which I've heard that it is a good game. But it's sort of a tactical strategy battle game, and so that could be fun. But I've held off buying this because it's not a shooter, and because I haven't been really big into tactical strategy battle type games. You know, I enjoyed Desert Commander on the NES when I was a kid. I had a friend who had that, and we used to play that. But this style of game really isn't my thing most of the time. But since it's set in the R-Type universe, and I was able to pick it up for basically nothing, since this particular pawn shop sells their PSP games so dirt cheap, definitely worth grabbing. And then I also stopped at another Goodwill location just down the street from that pawn shop and picked up a few things. I got Star Wars Clone Wars Lightsaber Duels. The package is kind of busted up here. I decided not to swap out the case because I have some extra cases here, and even though the outer artwork is damaged, otherwise it's in decent shape. The manual's got a little bit of a problem because of that puncture on the case, but otherwise it looks like it's in decent shape. I don't really know anything about this. My assumption is that you use the Wiimote to swing the lightsaber, which I think was a lot of the hope that Star Wars fans had for the Wii when it was first released. Like, we could get, you know, sword swinging and stuff like that, like you got with Red Steel. And I don't know that the that the Wii really delivered on that promise quite as well as most people had hoped. We got some of that with No More Heroes, which I loved. But we'll see how this shakes out. And I also found a couple of GameCube games that I'd never heard of. One of which is NASCAR Dirt to Daytona. And I'm not a big racing game fan, and I find NASCAR to be boring when you watch it. I suppose if you're there at the track, it's more interesting. And of course, it's always interesting when there's a crash, but it's just literally like a circular track most of the time, and they just go round and round and round and round. And I don't know, there's not enough drama to it. You know, it's not like college football or something where things are always changing or you know, every play is different. But it's a game I didn't know about. It's racing games I think are fun enough to play in short bursts that I'll put some time into it. But looks interesting. And another GameCube game I hadn't heard of is Tom Clancy's The Sum of All Fears. And I had not heard of this one, not only as a GameCube game, but also there are a number of Tom Clancy games that came out during this generation and the subsequent generation, and I'd never heard of this or seen it anywhere. So that's kind of cool. I'm wondering if it was a GameCube exclusive, because of the fact that I've never seen it or heard of it, because everybody's heard of Ghost Recon, and there are a couple of other Tom Clancy games during this era that you see everywhere you go when you look at Goodwill, pawn shops, etc. You know, I mean, the Splinter Cell series, of course, but yeah, anyway, cool to find one that I'd never heard of, and kind of a neat pickup. I also found some original PlayStation games. This is Casper, a haunting 3D challenge. I don't know how haunting a Casper game is. And the other thing I don't know is this says it's from 1996. And of course, this is the greatest hits release, so it probably came out later than that. But I wonder if this is the same game that came out on the Sega Saturn. This is by Interplay, and I know they developed for the Saturn, so I'm going to guess it probably is, but I can't confirm that. But that would be my assumption. Casper. I also picked up the original Medal of Honor, and I have the original Black Label print, and now I have the Greatest Hits print, so that's kind of cool. So we'll see. The only first-person shooter I've ever played on the original PlayStation was Star Wars Dark Forces, which at the time I thought was a bit clunky. I think it plays better on PC. But, you know, first-person shooters during this time I think were probably kind of hit and miss. So we'll see how this plays. But this series has gained huge popularity in the subsequent generation with all the Medal of Honor games on PS2, GameCube, and Xbox. So be interesting to go back to the original and check that out. See how much it differs. I picked up a Greatest Hits version of Gran Turismo. So now I've got the original Black Label and Greatest Hits version. And it's always good to see one in reasonably good shape like this is, with the manual. And this manual is actually in quite good condition. So that's always nice to see when you find these things at Goodwill for a really good price and they're not totally destroyed. And finally, and quite possibly my favorite and most exciting pickup of the day yesterday at that Goodwill, is Pinobee. This is a Hudson Soft game, original PlayStation platformer. It's very colorful and kind of reminds me at first glance of Rayman. I haven't played it. I don't know that much about it. I've seen some stuff online, but that's kind of the vibe I'm getting is Rayman. But Hudson, of course, is known for good platformers. They were the ones who did the Adventure Island series. And so, anyway, I'll be excited to put some time into this one because I think this might be a fun game. I've heard good things about it, so we'll see. But yeah, Pinnaby. So that should be interesting to check out. That's all I have this time. I know I'll have another video here reasonably soon because I'm expecting a package from a friend with some stuff he's been collecting on my behalf, and that's going to include some PSP, some Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance, and a few other odds and ends. But until then, I'll say sayonara and game on.